everyone! This week's video has a lot in it. So I started my loft conversion almost straight away after the video where I'd asked for your advice on what I should do with the loft. But it has taken me a long time to do all of the renovations. But I've managed to fit it into this video, which I think is under 20 minutes long, so I think that's pretty impressive. So grab a cup of tea or a hot chocolate or a cup of coffee, whatever takes your fancy, and sit back, and I hope you enjoy the video. So if you've been watching the previous videos, and please don't worry if you haven't, welcome to anyone who's new to my channel, but if you have watched the previous videos, you will know that I showed you this loft space and I said I wanted to take it back in time to the Tudor era, just like I've done with the rest of the doll's house, and I was considering opening up this space so that it was one long attic space. And I wanted to do this in the style of the Great Gallery space at Little Morton Hall, which is National Trust property, which is well worth a visit if you're in the UK. But overwhelmingly, the comments on that YouTube video, the majority of them were saying, no, leave it as 2 rooms. But I had a really clear vision in my head of what it would look like if I opened it up. So I thought, you only get one chance, I'm going to give it a go. So I got my Dremel out and I started trying to cut away at this wall. Now then, as expected, just like the rest of this doll's house, this piece of wood was really solid, really thick and really strong. This little door doesn't open and is just stuck over the top of the piece of wood, so I started by trying to pry this away, just to try and make the wood a little bit thinner. And even that was really difficult because it was so well stuck on. Honestly, whoever's had this doll's house before me, whoever made it, you have done such a good job. It is the sturdiest, strongest doll's house, and everything's done really, really beautifully, and I'm sorry that I'm changing it. I hope you approve if you're watching it. I'm also really sorry if you're one of the people who left a comment saying leave it as 2 rooms, and you're now watching this thinking, oh no, what a mess. Because I'm also looking at this and thinking, oh no, what a mess. And at this point, I was half thinking, oh, I regret starting this now, I should have just left it as 2 rooms. And the other part of me felt really determined and thought, well, I've gone this far, so there's no going back now. A little disclaimer, I am no expert at using tools, and as you can see here, there is a lot of smoke and the wood seemed to be getting scorched, and I was worried. I tried to do this slowly and kept taking little breaks. Anyone who is an expert is probably watching this thinking this is not how you should go about this project. And from a health and safety point of view, please do not watch this and think that this is how you should tackle a project like this. Please do not copy anything that I do. At this stage I really was thinking, what a lovely nice neat door, and now I've just got a great big rough hole with splinters everywhere. But anyway, I continued. There was definitely no going back at this point. However, my Dremel then broke. And I was halfway through, and I'm laughing now, but actually I'm really sad because obviously a Dremel costs quite a bit of money, and I thought maybe it might have just overheated, but that wasn't the case. It's still not working. So then I went in with a hacksaw, and this little saw was just really cheap years and years ago. I think it was from the pound shop, but actually this actually cut easier than the Dremel did, until I got stuck because I couldn't get at an angle to get the wall out. So then I decided to go at it from the bottom until I realised that there was some sort of support behind this wall, which I then crashed into. And then, oh no, I'm just watching this back and thinking, no. And then the saw broke. Yep, so the Dremel had broken, and then the saw had broken at this stage where I had a chunk out of the wall. So the saw was still working at this point, but it breaks in a second. And what a disaster. What a disaster. Everybody who left a comment on my previous video saying keep it as 2 rooms, I imagine you are sat there now thinking you should have listened to me, and I maybe should. But I am not going to be upset about this. I decided to have a little break. I walked around my garden, had a look at my flowers, I planted a few of these out. I got these for my birthday, and all of my pots needed replanting up, because we're at that stage of the year where the garden is starting to look like it's springing into life and all the dead wood needs cutting away. I hung some washing out because it was really windy. And then after I'd had a bit of a break, I came back to my project. So after that little break, I felt refreshed and ready to tackle this again. And I decided that actually going ahead and trying to cut this wall out probably wasn't the best idea. Especially because I didn't have any tools because I'd broken them all. So I decided that I needed to make a fake wall to cover this up. Also, the thought of trying to take out the wall on the other side, if I did manage to get through this one, I just thought, I don't think I can do it. So I made a little template and started to make my false wall. By the way, about the Dremel, I don't know what I've done because I really thought that I'd registered it for its warranty. But when I've looked, it says it's not registered and I don't have the box anymore, so I don't have the code to register it. I think it's too late. So I'm really disappointed with myself. I don't understand what I've done wrong there. I don't like wasting money, and yeah, the Dremel is expensive, and I've looked on YouTube and there are quite a few videos where people have had the same problem where it's just suddenly stopped working, and it explains on the YouTube videos why, and everybody seems to have the same common problem inside it. And it shows how to fix it, but I'm a bit nervous to start taking my Dremel to bits and trying to fix it because I'm not an electrician and that just doesn't seem like the safest thing to do. So for now, I have no Dremel, and I had quite a few projects which I wanted to use it for. So if anyone from Dremel's watching, can you help me out please and find out where my warranty's gone? I don't know what I did wrong. I really don't. But anyway, so hand tools for now, the ones that I've got left, and I started to make this little wall. I'm not going right back to what this used to look like because I'm not going to have a door stuck over the top. The door wasn't really in keeping with the Tudor era, so I'm quite happy that that bit's not going to be there anymore. It is going to be there on the wall on the other side because I just can't face trying to get that other wall out. But I like the fact that I'm going to make this wall look a little bit different. So although I'm not knocking all the way through to make the great hall that I wanted, actually this means that I can have a more Tudory doorway. So it will be an open doorway with some beams around it. And this isn't quite going to be a full-size door that would be to scale for a modern door. This is going to be a bit smaller. But I think that's okay because when I visited Tudor properties to have a look around them, all of the doors have been higgledy-piggledy and wonky in different sizes. And also, I think Spooky the Ghost might be going to live up in this attic space, and she doesn't even need doors, so it doesn't matter what size it is. I like the fact that someone would have to kind of bend down to go through it. I kind of like the story behind it. And I think dolls housing is all about creating narratives, isn't it, and little imaginary worlds. Even though quite a few things had gone wrong trying to take this wall out, I didn't feel disheartened at all by it. I often think that actually when things like that happen, it's for a reason, and actually the reason was because it's meant to end looking like this. And it always makes you think out of the box, doesn't it? And you end up with something that's actually maybe better than you originally planned. So, I had a look through my scraps of wood to try and find some beams. I found this door frame that I'd cut out from the downstairs of my doll's house. If you are new to my channel, there's loads of videos that you could go back and watch where I sort of took out a wall downstairs and restructured the downstairs to make a double height banqueting hall. That was hard work too, and I should have known from doing that actually this would be really hard to cut this wall out and make it a full length hall upstairs. I should have learned from that, but I didn't. But I think I didn't learn from that because actually, even though that was really difficult, I was so glad that I'd done it because the end product was exactly how I'd imagined it. Anyway, I found these little bits of wood that were left over from when I added beams to the upstairs of my doll's house. And I had 3 of them, which was perfect, and they just needed trimming down. Now, obviously I'd broken my saw and my Dremel, so I had to nip out and buy another one, so I bought this one. It was only from a shop around the corner, and I have a more heavy duty one somewhere, so I hadn't wanted to spend a lot of money on this. I couldn't first of all work out how the blade fit in, and then I managed to break my third tool of the video, and clearly at this point it must be me. It must be me. This is an exact example why you must not copy anything that I do in this video from a health and safety point of view, because I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, I still managed to use the saw even though I broke it, and I managed to cut these pieces down to the size that I needed, but I'm not sure that I'll be able to use the saw again. And I am laughing, but I am also thinking I can't afford to keep replacing the things that I keep breaking, and I need to be more careful. I also need to find my saw that was my granddad's, because that's really heavy duty, and I just, famous last words, but I don't think I'd be able to break that. I vacuumed up because in here there were a lot of bits of sawdust and shavings and splinters from the bit that I'd cut out. And then it was time to start painting, because I needed to paint my little wall that I just made, and I also needed to paint the ceilings that were currently yellow. The colour that I was using was called wheatgrass, and I've used it throughout my Tudor Dollhouse. I think it's by Crown, the paint, but it seems to be just the perfect colour for the Tudor era, I think. It's not brilliant white, it's not really bright, it's just a really nice off-white colour. So I tried to, as carefully as I could, paint these sections so that they were no longer yellow. And as you can tell now, it is night time, so obviously the artificial lighting in my house is now making this look yellow again. It's not yellow, it is now painted. I do go back to having some daytime footage again so you can see the proper colour before the end of the video. So now it was time to start painting some of the bits with this raw umber acrylic. The beams were obviously already a wood colour, but actually I needed them to match some of the bits that I was going to add. So I gave them a little bit of a wash of watered down raw umber acrylic, and I also painted these beams the same colour. Here's the daytime footage so you can see that it's not yellow. So I had to just paint some of the edges again to try and neaten them up. Obviously it's quite difficult painting a straight line, but added to that, that edge wasn't quite smooth, so it was a little bit wobbly, but I did the best that I could. And then it was time to start fitting the floorboards. So I showed you in a previous video how I made these floorboards using lollipop sticks that I'd then given a wash of raw umber acrylic paint over mixed with some water. Now when I did my floorboards for the downstairs and for the bedrooms of this doll's house, I used PVA to attach them, and I found that they warped, but then they settled again. And I deliberated over whether I should do that, and I'd had some comments with some advice on how to do it differently. But I actually decided that on this occasion I would use this Yoo-hoo glue that I'm sticking the beams down with here to also stick the floorboards down, because it meant that I didn't have to completely coat the floorboards, so I hoped that that meant that they wouldn't have quite as much moisture, and it's also quite quick drying, so I thought it would hold the floorboards down in place a little bit better. Now obviously this was an experiment, it wasn't something that I'd done before, but I thought I'd give it a go and I'd let you know how it turned out. Before putting the floorboards down, I did just try and neaten up this area here, because obviously I had the beam on the front of the door, but it needed to go sort of depthways down into the little corridor to hide all of the wall behind it, and also to add that 3D effect. So I did that on both sides, even though you can't really see the one that's not facing us. I love how my cat's asleep in the sunshine throughout this whole time-lapse video. Just in case the floorboards were going to warp, I put an anthology of William Shakespeare plays on top of the floorboards to hold them down. I do believe that the warping can only be prevented if you use a copy of Shakespeare. I'm not sure that any other book would do for the Tudor period. I'm just joking. I think you can use any heavy book. But I was hoping that they wouldn't warp anyway due to the fact that I was using this quick drying glue. As I laid my floorboards, I did them in a staggered layout, but I did it quite sporadically to make it look uneven deliberately. I didn't want them to be in sort of perfect steps because I just didn't think that would be reminiscent of the Tudor era. So as I laid down the ones at the edge here, I did end up having to cut lengthways to make really thin strips. After doing this, I did check by putting the roof panels back on to make sure that by adding the floorboards so close to the edge, it wasn't going to stop the roof panels from fitting, and it was fine. The only thing is that it's raised the roof panels up by just a millimetre, and it means that the little strip of tiles that you can see attached to the fixed panel of roof in the middle there looks sort of a millimetre lower than the rest of the tiles. I don't think there's much that I can do about that. I could try and shave a little bit off the inside of the roof, but I don't really want to start messing around with that in case it goes wrong, because the roof panels do fit quite snugly at the moment. You may have noticed that back wall of this room that still has the door in it because I haven't done any sort of restructuring of that panel of wood. I've painted completely raw umber. My plan is to do some panelling in that room to try and disguise the door really. And I'll probably use the same method that I used for the panelling downstairs, but I'll do a video of it when I do it. In the room where I had altered the door, I still had to add these little skirting boards just to hide the bottom bit. I gave them a little lick of paint. I'm just using some of the old floorboards that were left over. As I was doing this, I was thinking of all the possibilities of what can go into these two rooms. I'm already thinking I'd like to make a little swallow's nest with some eggs in it. I took the opportunity to stick these chimney pots down. I made these as one of the very first things for my house, but I never actually glued them in place. So every time I move my doll's house, they fall off. They fit nice and snugly in place, but they're just not glued down. So I thought I'd just use this opportunity to give them a little bit of glue. So, ta-da! What do you think? Please let me know in the comments. I'm really happy with it. There are still some bits to do. I need to redo the back of the windows as an example, and this wall here I need to put the panelling on, and then I need to think about furniture. So I'd love it if you could leave in the comments all of your ideas and suggestions. If you're not subscribed already, please do hit subscribe, and I aim to put a video up every Wednesday. I have already made next Wednesday's video, and I'm excited to show you that. So thank you ever so much for watching, and I'll see you next week.